Welcome back to another episode of Tapped In. Hey, today we got a special guest, but before we get into that, you can see the man sitting next to me on the right. No, this is the first time I've seen him since the last episode, and I'm tripping out as well, and I think we all need an explanation. What happened, and why is your forehead looking like that, my G?
That's the question I've been getting asked all week, literally, you know?
First thing when I saw it, I said, bro, this guy's bruised.
Yeah, it looks bad, doesn't it? I don't know how bad it looks because I'm the one walking in his body, but it probably does look bad, huh? So, quick story time, yeah? Do you guys know what hijama is?
Cupping?
Yeah. So, wet cupping. So, it's like they do little incisions and they place a suction cup and then all like the toxins and like dead blood comes out.
Isn't that usually done on your back and stuff?
Yeah, I've seen it on
why
your
is it on
back.
the forehead? I've seen it. I've
can
done it
be
on the back.
It can be done in so many places. It can be done behind the knee. I got mine behind the knee. Got on the quads. I got it on my hemis. Got it, some even on the front. I got it over here
Just
for
leave the rest of
digestive.
the spare details there, bro. You don't need to-
No,
For those who don't know though, like for those who don't know what cupping is and what's the benefits behind it, tell them.
So I don't know exactly each detail of it, but I do know that it's a release. Like, you know when you go to the sauna?
Yeah. It releases
release
the toxins.
toxins?
Yeah.
So it's like you're releasing toxins in your blood.
Yeah, I remember I did this before. Remember I was on the Talking Trophies potty,
Yeah.
and I was talking about what happened to me at a wedding. So I had done the wet cupping, and you're supposed to like rest in that and have a good diet.
You can't really sweat and stuff, I think, first 24 hours.
Yeah, you were there. What am I saying? We went to the wedding, and just like moving real fast, whatever, you know, busy day. Boom, fainted.
Yeah, you're meant to have like
A lot of
heaps
rest,
of water intake.
Yeah.
Before you go and get out, I heard you're supposed to do this prep work, and then after that you shouldn't be training. Like you should be taking it very, very
24
easy.
hours.
Yeah, I
Because of
just
that
sensed
toxin.
it, bro.
But like I'll be honest, I've never ever heard it get done in the forehead, or nor have I ever seen it get done in the forehead. And that's why I'm wigging out.
All right, long story short,
Yeah.
I was doing it and it was never planned. But the guy did say he does on the forehead and he also does on the cheeks. For the cheeks, it helps with sinuses. Because you got to think about it, when blood comes out of your body is then forced to make new blood. Do you get what I mean?
You're getting the older.
So it helps
dirty
with
ones
blood
out.
circulation and it helps with all the organs that blood is around. So I said, nah, I'm not going to do the cheeks. But I was thinking about it. At the start, I was like, do I have any...
Not doing the
this
cheeks,
getting
Ali.
worse.
At least he's not doing the cheeks,
Yeah,
bro.
no, I was thinking about it. I was in a position where I was thinking about it. I was like, because I said, what's the benefits of doing it on the head? He said concentration. He said brain fog.
Yeah.
All these mad benefits. And I was like, should I try it? And me, I'm a daredevil. Sometimes I try random shit, you know? So I was like, should I try it? And at the start, I was like, nah, brother. Next time I'll come back and I'll do it, yeah? But then when he was doing everything else, I started feeling good. And I was like, you know what? Stuff it. Do it. So then he started just doing incisions on my head. Boom, got the suction cup. And then as soon as I looked at myself in the mirror, I'm like, I'm done for a good 10 days. And I've been getting roasted ever since, you know?
Bro, I was FaceTiming you on the way here, and I was like, "Yo, what pole did you hit?"
Yeah, it looks bad, I know.
But yeah, man.
But
Hey,
anyway, yeah, I think we can stop with the cupping talk. Hey, I'm sorry, my brother. I'm sorry, bro. We had to put you through that, bro.
Hey, did it work?
Yeah, that's it.
there's no introductions yet. We needed a final
I
answers.
feel good, bro. I swear, I feel so concentrated. I feel like I'm in Zen. What is it called? Zen.
Zend out, yeah.
Zened out. Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I feel zened out.
I hear that.
You're just cruising, yeah? All right, we'll see if you're focused.
Without
during the
further
episode.
ado, let's introduce a very special guest. What a guest, let's just say, man.
Big
What
one.
a guest. What a young Australian achiever. You know, lots of accolades, a lot of work he puts in for his people, for himself, and just an all-rounded, genuine person. I've had the blessing to work alongside him. Without any further glaze, ladies and gentlemen, there's Abraham Kuol in the building today.
Abraham Kuol. Welcome, my brother. Welcome.
So I know you're the Australian of the Year now, so you know your schedule's a bit busy, and we're like, you know, you make us wait and stuff. I know, bro,
man.
but like, you know, the price went up, so we had to sort of make things work around the schedule. But it's a pleasure to have you, bro. And it was a long time coming to have this conversation, and yeah, bro, I look forward to that.
Nah, for real, it's an honor to be here. Actually, like I'm an actual fan, bro. I've seen some of the videos for real.
Appreciate you, bro.
So it's good to be here finally.
Welcome to the show, man. Hey, you mentioned that Australian of the Year. So that was 2026 award?
2026 is not here yet.
No, I saw 2026 on your...
Yeah. So they say like 2026
So you get
young
it for the
Australian.
award.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Don't worry, man. Hey, I've done some research. I've done some research, man. Hey.
Solid,
Is it
solid.
2025 to 2026?
Oh, no, it's just that for the year 2026.
Yeah.
There's gonna be like a national selection panel as well, and they'll decide like the Australian of the Year for just Australia overall.
The whole thing, yeah.
So at the moment, it's like Young Australian of the Year for Victoria for 2026.
Yeah.
That's mad. What a massive achievement, bro.
Congratulations, man.
No,
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Deserve it, my
I
guy.
appreciate it.
For those viewers that don't know what that award is or what it means, can you talk to us a little bit about how you were nominated in the first place?
To be honest, I can't even tell you. I don't even know.
You don't know how it works, yeah?
No. So there's a whole process, right?
Yeah.
So like somebody from the community recognizes you for something that you're doing in the community.
That's what's up.
Then it goes to a selection panel, and that selection panel determines the 4 nominees for Victoria or for every subsequent state. And then the winner is decided. So like even going to the awards night, I had no idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, I turned up with my whole family. They had us on like one of those outside tables where the lighting was poor.
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm thinking, damn, it's still a good experience to be here. I'm loving it right now. It's an honor to be here. But in my mind, I'm already thinking, I'm psyched out. Like it's time to go home. I'm ready to go home.
Yeah, yeah.
Even when they called it, it's still a shock. Like I got up, I stood up, I didn't even know what to do. I looked at my girlfriend, I looked at my mom, my dad, and I'm like, what, are we gonna hug? Because
What's
I
the
don't
first?
know.
Some real shit.
So eventually I just decided, like, as I was walking up, just to honor them, tap them on the shoulder, and then just made my way. But in my mind, I wasn't even preparing for all of that, because usually, like, you see, like, if when someone wins, they'll get up, they'll hug their family. But for me, just to be there with my parents, to be there with my family, that was enough, bro. That was insane. Like, my parents, they don't get out to do stuff like that normally.
Yeah.
And even for them, it's an uncomfortable space to be in. So for them to show up, and they had a good time as well, honestly. Like, my mom, she was tearing most of the time. My dad was happy. This guy was enjoying it, bro. So it's like for every migrant kid, bro, it's like that feeling that you get, like making sure like that sacrifice that your parents have made. It's like they love us regardless, but
that's their
in
version.
my mind, it's like it's a way to honor them and to honor their legacy, but also the legacy of those that came before them.
100%.
It's insane, bro. Like I don't think anybody knows, like, especially if you're a migrant from like a similar kind of background as myself, like most people don't know what our parents go through, and we take their sacrifice for advantage. So, like, for me, it was a good moment just to experience that with them, and just it's all love. I was sick.
100%, bro. That's what's up, because every migrant can attest to that as well, man. When you get, parents will be the first people that come to a country that's foreign to them, don't know the language, don't know nothing. They're going through the whole motion, and their goal is like literally they put their whatever goals is, that was all left behind. It's now a matter of just raising the kids in a whole foreign country and just hoping that they become something, So for them to even sit down there and see you even in that light itself, forget about the award, just see you in that light and see what you're doing, bro. I'm pretty sure that that's their version.
It's a return of investment.
Exactly. That's their version of that's their version of success. So.
Nah, for real, for me, it even felt like collective success. So for my parents, like I grew up as a refugee. Like I grew up in Kenya personally, but my parents they've been through a lot. Like they've gone through 4 different countries before even coming here to Australia. They've fled war, they've fled chaos. Like the stories that I got, man, I got stories for days. Even the stories that they have, that's insane. But just in that moment for me, it just highlighted that, like, because they both got dressed up. So that was unreal.
Beautiful.
That was unreal.
And for the people, like, I've obviously got to hear your story, and also I get to work alongside you a lot, But up until this point, I think for any young Australian, that's a massive achievement and accolade, But for someone like yourself, I think it just has a bit more weight behind it, considering the story you have behind your name. So, like, I guess coming up to receiving that award, like, what kind of work have you been involved in, and like even about some of the Black Rhino stuff that you can talk to as well. Just sort of like let us know how you obviously led up to that position of receiving such a significant award,
Yeah, so like most of the work that I do is in the youth justice space. So we know what it's like here in Victoria at the moment, like with African Australian young people accounting for 50% of young people in custody, and South Sudanese young people accounting for around 30% of young people in custody in Victoria at the moment. Then obviously we've seen the debates online and in the media. We've seen like the criminalization of African young people and just African gangs, labels and terms like that. And for me, I wanted to really understand what was going on. Like initially, I started off at the grassroots level, because that's where you learn the most. Like I had my own personal experience, obviously, growing up as a South Sudanese, Kenyan-born migrant here in Australia. But for me, it hurt just to see our community painted in that way. So I wanted to understand what was going on. And at the same time, it was like there was a sort of silence around the issues that were happening. What happens when there's silence is like you're not really resolving the problem, and the community that ends up suffering is the one that they're making the headlines about.
100%.
So the thing that I thought I could do was, okay, let me get at it at a grassroots level. Let's see what programs we can put in place. I went to RMIT and I studied a Bachelor of Applied Science in Project Management. So most of my understanding was around developing programs, designing programs. So initially, selfishly growing, like I wanted to go into construction, make a bit of coin. My mum eventually convinced me to come into to work at the nonprofit sector. So immediately just started working like as a project coordinator and just started writing programs and delivering programs as well, because I enjoyed seeing like people from our community be able to get something out of the work that we were doing. So it just started from there, but it didn't feel like that was enough, right? Because you could have really amazing programs, and trust me, Victoria has like some really sick programs. But when they operate in silos, and when they're not sometimes reaching that target group, and some people now call them like chronic offenders. So those are like the boys deeply entrenched in the lifestyle. I didn't initially go into this space wanting to work in youth justice, just wanted to help out the community, lift the community up. Then I found like the only way to lift the community up is to look at the source where the most struggle is. And for us at the moment here in Victoria is like the boys in custody. But I could relate to that story. So when like some of the boys were telling me about their journey, I'm like, that sounds a lot like mine. So it's unfortunate you've ended up where you've ended up. How can we turn that around? And even now, like seeing 5 years down the line, seeing like my brother like Zaid and the boys coming into this space gives me a lot of hope and optimism. Like I'm seeing young kids, really serious offenders, start to turn their lives around. So that's sick, man.
Let's say you get to those levels, you know, when you, I think when you outcare everyone else and you put yourself in those situations, you know, learn from the grassroots and being on, like I can imagine the units that you might have been on and putting yourself right in the middle of the problem. It's probably right, as you say, to how to get to the solution quicker, you know, putting yourself right in the middle of it. But so, like I said, I get to witness some of Abe's incredible work and some of the outcomes of it. But yeah, man, like I think it's truly deserved. And yeah, bro.
Things didn't stop there for you in terms of studies. You had your bachelor's, and now, if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're going to be getting your PhD.
Yeah. So I'm nearing like the end of my doctorate. So I'm studying I'm studying doctorate in criminology at Deakin University. So I'm working in an incredible team. One of the guests that you guys have interviewed before, Stefan Shepherd.
Yeah.
A G, like a true pioneer in this space. Nothing more has to be said.
100%.
Well, even the way that I ended up studying at Deakin, me and him were just having a conversation about what was going on at the time. I didn't know what his level of expertise was, but like we just caught up and we were having a chat, and I was like, this is somebody who deeply cares and is somebody who should be a leader in this space. And that was somebody who inspired me then into that space as well. I'm seeing somebody working at not even just a state level, but like a national level, doing incredible work already, and already aligned with something that I was passionate about. So for me, it was an easy choice. I never imagined that I'd be the kind of person who was going to do a PhD though. I grew up thinking like, there's no way I'm going to go and study 7 years and put long. 7 years of my life towards that. Like in high school, for the most part, I wasn't even interested in school. Yeah, I did well academically, but I never saw myself doing that. It's not something that I saw as my end goal. But the more and more I got passionate about the community and trying to help lift the community up, and I'm not even frightened by the challenge, because there's a lot of great people in this space doing a lot of great things. And 100%. Even at the moment, the direction that the Victorian government recently took gives me a little bit of inspiration as well. I know it's insane, but yeah, so my doctorate looks at risk and protective factors for offending. So pretty much just what are the causes and then what are the pathways out. But I've got a strong focus on pathways out. That's the goal, that's the key.
And that's what we need.
100%.
And that's, I think, the goal of currently what's happening, you know, in our communities. It's sad, and, you know, like we can't really blame anyone or anybody that's in this situation. So what's one advice you give someone that's right now, you know, navigating high school maybe, that doesn't even know what he wants to do in the future, you know? What's some advice you'll give him for just the journey and like just embracing the journey, or like just things that they can do to sort of, you know, even try and find a way, or like
Yeah, no, but especially like for people in our community, your strength, like your strength comes from your story. Like to go through what most of us have gone through, even some of the young kids that grow up here, builds a different level of resilience. Now, if you can combine that resilience with discipline, then the world is yours, literally. I think what's missing is that hope, and we talk sometimes about needing more representation at an upper level, but now we're starting to get that. Young kids can look up to people within our communities here in Australia making a meaningful contribution. So I think they should work towards that, and they should work towards eclipsing that as well. It's definitely possible. If it was possible anywhere else, that's Australia.
But possible is one thing, but you know, the difficulty levels of, you know, being at your age, if you don't mind us sharing, but to have 28 years of age and to have a level of doctorate is not easy, you know. So, did you ever have any moments throughout your time studying that you sort of wanted to throw it out and you kind of just had too much, it was overwhelming, or any other hurdles or obstacles that you faced?
Yes, like in my second year, I took 6 months off my first degree, just because I needed a reset. I don't really recommend taking time off, because what I learned in that moment was like, there's a life outside of this, but at the same time, there's so much potential that can be achieved through education. That break allowed me to, I guess, just reset and look towards the future, because I've been going through school here like most people, went straight out of school, straight into uni. And around that time, you're still navigating your identity, and you're still trying to figure out like what your purpose is going to be. The thing is, though, at that age, you don't really know what your purpose is going to be. So knowledge is power at that point. So what can you do around that age is just become more educated, become more knowledgeable in an area that you're interested in, and eventually it will lead to the outcome that you want. But at the same time, you've got to be willing to put yourself out there. I think like the journey hasn't really been that easy, and sometimes like people look at the end goal, and people look at like where you're at when the accolades come. But I've worked in a whole range of different fields. Like I've worked. I started my first job as soon as I could when I was still in high school. Started working at KFC. I worked at KFC all the way into uni, and then after that, I was just doing odd jobs, like working in different factories. Just like that's that hustle culture, that grind culture. I've washed, like I used to do this one job where I'd literally drive like 2 hours to Ballarat to go wash trucks because it paid $50 an hour. I would only do that for 4 hours. But in my mind, I was thinking $50 an hour, that's bang. So at that age as well, I can make that. So now I used to do that as well. And then even when I started getting into the field as well, like it's that cliche, but I was volunteering as soon as I was nearing the end of my degree in project management. I looked at a lot of different organizations. I actually went to a few organizations just offering my services, like African Australian organizations. Some turned me away because it's like inexperience and things like that. So I was like, well, never mind. So I'll work where God takes me. And that's the biggest part, though. Like, let God guide your path and let God guide your life, because the outcome is amazing.
No, I 100% agree with you, man. And that's the thing. Especially when you're young, it's very important to remember to just take risks. You know, you don't have much responsibilities. You don't have, like, life just gets more hectic as you grow, you know? So while you're young, while you have those opportunities, you're not meant to know what you're destined to do, or who you're destined to be. Just go for it, ride the motion, you know, enjoy that opportunity. So I definitely agree with you over there, man. In terms of taking risks, is something that I think is highly recommended. But
how did you find the balance, like with obviously trying to make a living and trying to study? And the second half of that question is, nowadays you hear some people sort of challenge the education thing, and they say, well, do we need that 100% to sort of get to the places we need to go? But then you see someone like yourself at 28 with a doctorate, and then you get something like a Victorian Australian of the Year in Victoria award. So I guess, what do you say to those people who might not think that education is like needed as much?
I guess like it's unique to everybody's journey and to everybody's story. So you don't have to go through education to be successful, but it does guarantee the highest likelihood of success. But at the same time, it guarantees knowledge and guarantees social integration as well. Like through education, you're exposed to a whole different range of people. You're exposed to different communities. Like you learn about other people, even if that's not the first goal. And it's not, if you're someone who grew up not really having any role models or like anybody to look up to, maybe you're the first in your family to go to university, what education does for you is it exposes you to a whole new world outside yourself. That limits that thinking. At the same time as well, for those people who are entrepreneurs and who are dreamers, through education you can build up those networks. You can learn a little bit more about your own craft, but at the same time you challenge yourself, right? Because school education and the education can be hard for everybody, but through education you develop perseverance, you develop resilience, and you start to look at yourself as someone who can do something and someone who can achieve something. And I guess that's my message. Like, you don't need it, but it's good to have.
Highly favorable, I think.
At the same time, if you say you get your degree and that's not what you want to end up doing, then you can still go on the path that you wanted to go down. But you're now putting yourself at a caliber of people, especially within a country like Australia, where a qualification is recognized and it does open the doors for you in whatever industry that you want. And it doesn't have to be specific to the thing you're doing as well.
So you can study like in one field, but then work in a whole.
Yeah.
Like
Like,
that's the thing that people don't know.
I studied project management. Most of the people I knew went into construction management or like actual project management in consulting firms and things like that. But now I'm working in criminology. That's completely different to where I started. So don't limit yourself. Don't limit where you start or where you could end up. Your journey is yours.
Exactly. So take it. Right, speaking of challenges, what are some misconceptions that you want to sort of challenge when it comes to the young African Australian communities, and the justice system itself, and some things that you want to challenge?
Look, there's definitely some challenges that we have as a community, especially here in Victoria when it comes to justice system contact. But overall, as a community, the honest truth is we're doing relatively okay. Where people talk about overrepresentation within the justice system, we're also overrepresented within higher education. But it's not something that sticks in the headlines. But that's a big talking point as well.
Facts.
But it's about what we prioritize in our conversations at the moment. I don't want young people from African communities to think that the way that they're painted is how or what the actual reality is on the ground. There's a lot of African Australian community members making a meaningful contribution here in Australia, and that's the data will speak to that as well. But for those who are struggling and still haven't caught up, they do need a little bit of support as well. But I'll honestly say that's not the majority, but they are probably who we should put the most wraparound support around, so that can uplift the whole community.
And do you think we've come a long way right now? Or do you think it was better before in terms of representation?
I think we've come a long way, definitely. Like, you're seeing, and shout out to Mohammed Semra, who's just announced mayor of Melbourne. Like,
congratulations.
You're seeing that happen here in Victoria. You're not only seeing that as well, though. You're seeing kids like Gout, like Australian representations of what it means to be an African Australian here. And I don't think that hasn't really been the case before. I think in Australia we have something unique here, where as African communities, we're literally the pioneers of what it means to be an African Australian. And 100%. What we should be doing, and it's my personal take, people have different opinions about it, is I don't actually mind claiming that Australian part about it, because I grew up here for most of my life.
That's us, exactly.
I go to other countries and people identify me as an Australian. They don't think I'm a South Sudanese person. Kid you not, I've been different countries in Europe, and people are like, "Oh, are you from Australia?" In my mind, I'm thinking, "Yeah, shit, I must be Australian."
No shit, huh?
That's insane.
So what? I guess what are what can the people expect to see like in the next 5 years from Abraham Kuol? It doesn't have to be exposing your whole game plan or strategy, but like, where do you sort of see yourself, 3 to 5 years coming from now, on the back end of everything that like you sort of accomplished?
For me, it's just to keep letting God guide my journey. So it's just love, service, grace, but overall, it's just continuing to show kindness. I feel like that flipped the script for me. Like, once I started to show a little bit more empathy, a little bit more kindness towards other people, gave me a better understanding of myself, and then also made me understand the shared experience that we have as not only African Australians, but as Australians overall. So it's just, for me, it's not even about where, but what I can do. And it's just to keep showing that kindness, keep showing that love, and just keep doing the same things, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's deadly, man. What else can we say? What about your traveling experience after? So like, obviously you've come to Australia like from Kenya, but Have you had any recent travel experiences, or did you have any experiences of traveling while you were still studying?
Yeah, so like through like this Westpac Social Change Fellowship that I'm doing, I get to learn, I get to do a little bit of study and some study tours. So I go to like say Europe, for example, went to the Netherlands, to Sweden, to Norway, look at like the justice system responses there and see like if there was any insights from there that we could apply here directly in Victoria. And then it's just, so that's been an experience in itself as well. And I never imagined that like being a thing that could happen.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Flying to other countries in the world to find information and how to apply it back to your own community. That's wild, man.
Insane.
What's some things you've seen, or like what's some differences that you've noticed as well?
Look, I think like people always talk about that we should lean towards Nordic European models of justice prevention and early intervention. What I found there, like they've got really good systems in place already, and it's probably less comparable. Maybe Sweden was comparable to Australia, but the Netherlands and Norway, they've got very different systems to what we've got here in Victoria. They've got different population sizes, so and their system responses are embedded within how their societies are structured as well. I think what's probably more comparable and relatable, and something that we've just done here in Victoria, is the model in Scotland and London, which is like public health approach, which looks at what are the root causes of violence and how can we address the root causes of violence. But one thing that was unique about what just happened in Victoria is like now we're moving towards a model that does a bit of both. So in Victoria, we're actually pioneering something. We're building something new, something unique. And a big shout out to 16 Yards as well as Zaid and the boys. Like that lived experience element from the start, I think that's a game changer. Like I didn't even have to talk about that too much. But Victoria, we're taking a different direction, a balanced direction that doesn't paint, I guess, our communities as the sole problem. And which means now we go to the root causes of offending. We do the early intervention and prevention work. But at the same time, we acknowledge that there are community concerns about violence at the moment. Like we can all talk about it, the knife crime that's happening, things like that. So the strategy that Victoria is taking at the moment is giving me a bit of hope, as well as like where the sector is at the moment. I get to see and work with a lot of passionate people that genuinely care about uplifting young people from our community. So that's it.
100%. And shout out to 16 Yards, man. Like, for those of people that don't know what 16 Yards do, search them up. Shout out to Stefan and Shane. Doing great work down there, groundwork as well, and that's real work that they're doing. So yeah, definitely shout out to them, man. Just this is a question posed to pretty much everyone. But
Quickly, hold on, just before you ask that question, before it leaves my mind, yeah. With the root causes, yeah, what would you say, like within our African Australian community, is the main root causes for offending?
I think
based on your extensive views of research.
Yeah, so we've been doing research at the moment into like our communities and mainly looking at refugee and humanitarian entrants, like African Australians that have come mainly through like East Africa. And the reason why we've prioritized that group is they're the ones that are currently overrepresented within the justice system and happen to be the ones that experience majority of the social
Even
challenges.
the ones that are born here? Even like
it's actually...
Is that included?
Yeah, it's actually more the ones that are born here than the ones that were born overseas. So the patterns have changed completely. So and a little bit of the research was slightly outdated. So what we've done is we've interviewed kids directly who are currently within our youth justice system, kids from the community who've had shared or similar experiences, kids from the community who've been locked up but then moved away from their offending lifestyle and now doing good things as well, doing great things actually. So we had a pretty good sample. We're working towards tight timelines, but we had a pretty good sample and we've been able to generate some risk and protective factors, so some things that have been leading to offending. And to go into a little bit of that, so I guess probably one of the most notable things is that peer group influence that we're aware of. So but what most people don't understand is like with the peer groups, it's really like built around loyalty. So it's strong bonds. It's like a brotherhood.
Exactly.
Boys that you grew up with from the same community, from the same areas, might have been boys that shared a meal with you and your family. So that bond's already there. And once you disengage from, maybe I'll go right back to the start. So there's that acculturation pressure for the parents. So when parents migrate to Australia from their countries of origin, like any migrant group, you're going to, for a short period of time, experience social challenges, be dependent on welfare. So things like Centrelink, which was the case for a lot of the East African refugees. So the Sudanese, South Sudanese, Somali, Ethiopian, Eritrean, the ones that came through refugee pathways and were already displaced in their own countries of origin. Now, to put a little bit more context on that, what it means to be displaced is like pretty much a person who has no home, who has no country, and is now living in like refugee camps in other countries where there isn't really any safety,
No stability.
no food, constant violence and like fear. If gangs back there as well, like from as a young kid, I still remember that. And then when you come here, you're trying to navigate a whole new system where it's a completely different culture. For parents who don't really speak English, it can be a little bit tricky because you're not going to be able to support your kid with like their school education. But at the start, at the base level, it's the financial pressure that migration puts on you after you arrive in that new country. A lot of the community like lives in like low income situations, so like it's like government housing, things like that. And then, so for parents, they already got enough pressures as it is. One thing that we found that was interesting is like it's a lot of like large single parent led households with like usually a single mother with like maybe 6 or 7 kids, just raising all those kids on her own. And it might have been because there was like a family conflict or dispute where the domestic violence and the relationship broke down, or they're migrated here just purely them and the kids, and which was sort of like part of the humanitarian subclass 202 visa. So they took in a lot of like young women and children at the time that were migrating like our communities here. But back to like the financial pressures that the families experience, that it means that sometimes like the basic necessities that kids need, whether that's with resourcing for schools or like things to be able to go on camps and things like that, they might not necessarily have access to. Early on, it doesn't matter as much, but you move into the school space. So when kids are in school, it's pretty hard for their parents after like primary school to be able to support them with things like homework and to provide just basic educational support. And if the kid's struggling at school, they start to feel isolated. They don't feel as connected to the schooling system here. So that parental support has been an issue. But this is, again, it's not actually to put any blame on the parents.
Yeah.
It's actually a really, really difficult thing. Or with what the research says, it doesn't actually matter what background you're from. If you've got like 6, 7 children and you're living in a low income situation and you're expected to provide like a high level of parental support for your kids here in Australia, it can be challenging. Like just to give a comparison of like the education systems, some of the education system back home, it's 100% on the school. So the school will provide the education to your child. They'll make sure that the child's keeping on track. They'll provide the discipline. When families come here, it's like 25% is the school, 75% is the kid and the household, which is tricky for reasons that we just described. But I think it starts to shift a little bit when kids get into like, or they transition from primary school to high school. Growing up, now there's some kids that are pretty far behind already at a primary school level, sometimes 2 years behind already at primary school. So they're entering higher education, so like as in year 7 without any support, any backing. And again, I don't know what it is about that transition period from like year 6 to year 7, because everybody loves primary school.
Yeah.
And like everybody feels supported in primary school.
Yeah.
At all. But then when you move to year 7, all the chaos starts.
Yeah.
It's like there's a whole new environment. It's kids from like all these different schools coming together. It's almost like there's, I don't know, something happening again where
There's a shift there.
yeah, there's a shift and you've got to figure out the new dynamics within the school. And for a lot of kids as well, like when you're going through that phase of puberty and you're trying to develop who you are and your identity, for African kids that can be a bit of a struggle because they experience like a dual identity conflict where they're attached to their parents want them to be aligned with their own cultural values, their own like traditions. And the kids growing up here, what they're saying is like, oh, like we want to adopt the Australian values and cultural norms. So they're like caught in between two worlds. At the same time, like if they're in a school space and there isn't as much contact with the parents from the school, kids can get away with almost anything. They can go tell their parents, I've done my homework, and the parents
They'll
won't
just
know.
believe
'Cause,
it.
yeah, the parents will believe it, and the parents are not really communicating with the school because of language barriers, and it's pretty hard enough already as it is. Then it comes back to like school disengagement. We found like as like probably one of the strongest predictors of violence, just because if you, as soon as you disengage from school, and the pattern that we were seeing is other boys like start to kick back with other boys that are in a similar situation, and at that time it's like it's shared struggle. Like we can all relate to that. Like we're usually more like connected to people from our own cultures, from our own communities as well. Starts off with things as simple as like you're wagging school. You might go shoplift, and you might nab something from the store because like it's easy, right? And in your mind, you're already thinking, I don't really have this, like, and I haven't had that much growing up. So why can't I have it?
Yeah.
Why does everybody else get to have this?
So you reckon that comes from like anger?
A lot of
Break it down, or just a lot of emotions.
like a lot of emotional dysregulation as well. Like growing up, there isn't like healthy emotional practices modeled by parents in particular. So the kids don't learn like positive like emotional responses to a whole range of different emotions. So being prone to anger and aggression and irritability, like that's already a known risk factor, and it's heightened when your situation within the household, lack of support, that disengagement, and that peer contact. The peer groups is like probably the thing that most people are concerned about now. They should be, but it really doesn't start there. It's what pushes the kids towards their peers and towards their bonds. Those are the root causes. So you gotta go all the way back and start there. But because like that's the visible thing, like you're seeing like groups of boys from different ethnic backgrounds going into, maybe that's shopping centers, maybe that's stores, like hitting licks and robberies and shit like that, like carjackings, home invasions, and like you're seeing, okay, this group of boys or this peer group is a problem. And most of the time, like some of the research was saying is like you're zanned up, you're perked up on Lyrica, things like that. You're gonna be zombied out, and most of the time you don't even really know what you're doing, and most people say, like yeah, I didn't know. That at like maybe one or two times, like it's people can give you the benefit of the doubt, but after like a sustained period of time doing the same thing and it leading to the same outcome, it's like then about taking accountability and responsibility, like as yeah.
Do you think social media
was a
has
big
an
part
effect
as well. Yeah. Like it's insane. Like I think like in most of the research that I was looking at, like initially social media wasn't really mentioned, so it's a new space. But social media has changed the whole way that crime happens now. Like not only just from the way that people are able to network with other people and like organize jobs, but even the kind of crime that we're seeing, like we've seen it all over the news, that it's notoriety seeking, status seeking crime. But it literally is like boys looking to get a reputation, looking to get a big name. Like they want to be known in the area, they want to be known in the ends, but they wanted to be known beyond that. But psychologically looking at it, it's just somebody that wants to feel valued, somebody that wants to feel seen, and it's for most people, that's what you want. Like, and it's not that formal recognition that everybody wants, but it's to when you're doing something good for it to be acknowledged. And I guess they're just channeling it into a different way. So like if I'm already feeling hopeless, I don't really feel connected to, say, Australia as a country, or I don't feel connected to the institutions, whether that's the schools. And I don't really have like, so our parents are really good at setting like high parental expectations. So they want us to be lawyers, they want us to be doctors. But the work that translates into us achieving that outcome usually isn't there. And again, it's not really any fault of the parents. Like they've if anything, like the parents have come from like a really, really difficult situation. They've got PhDs in life, for real.
They do.
And
They've
some
survived.
of us,
They've survived. And the stuff that they've gone through is more like
insane.
always. Some of these conversations I have with the boys, you know, it's like one of my mates has got this philosophy. It's like our parents, they don't have mental health issues. They don't usually suffer from any mental health issues because they didn't have time to sit down and say, I'm depressed, or to sit down and say, I'm anxious, or to sit down and say, you know, I'm going crazy. Because they were always in survival mode. And there wasn't any attention for them or any time for them to go through any of that. You know, so it's like my mate was saying, in Australia, there's more of all of that kind of stuff because no one's really in survival mode anymore. You get what I mean?
No, you're 100%.
So it's like our parents, they're on another level of resilience. Because like you said earlier, you know, in the start of this conversation, when you're trying to escape, you know, countries where there's war, you know, like South Sudan, Somalia, even Eritrea, you know, when there was that whole change with Ethiopia and stuff like that. People are escaping. And they have to establish themselves again and again and again and again through this country, through that country, to that country. So within that time, they're not having any time to go through any mental health issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then when they come to Australia, it's like the children. It's like they kind of have time. You get what I mean?
I get what you mean. So even when they come to Australia, it's like they don't even have the time to worry about mental health. Like that's probably like most people say it's a first world problem because for them, they've come to here, they're still under financial pressure. You got like kids screaming in your ear the whole time. Like for anybody that's been around kids for a little bit of time, like imagine being around like 7 kids and you're their sole provider, but at the same time, like especially boys, because we all do dumb shit. Like we just want to fight, and just do crazy shit. And but we never look at it from the perspective of our parents, right? Like that's stressing them out.
100%.
Like that's like contributing to their emotional dysregulation as well. Considering as well like everything that they've experienced, but the level of resilience and the level of discipline,
unimaginable.
Crazy. Like
crazy.
you get parents here, and part of the reason why they can't really be as active or as present, like to provide that parental monitoring and that support, is literally like some of our parents they're working 2 jobs. They're working 2 jobs, so sometimes they leave before their kids even get up, and then the responsibility is put on the oldest kid to make sure that everybody gets up for school. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes kids decide to sleep in, but you get the parent that's working that shift and then has to work another shift just to make ends meet. And even then, like you got kids that are saying, I don't have the latest Nikes, I don't have a PS5, I don't have this, I don't have that. And your parent is like working 2 jobs literally to put food on the table, clothes on your back, to like make sure that you can live a good life.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like a lot of the, like our African aunties, they could do that. They could work 2 jobs, they can raise 10 kids, you know, and do it with ease.
And they do.
Like they would struggle, but what I'm saying is like they do it with ease, but like compared to someone that's born here and would face the same struggles, it'd be a different outcome. You know what I mean?
You know what? I
Nice.
think we're really, really fortunate, man. You know,
100%.
obviously with our parents with that survival mindset as well, man. They forget about making sure that there's food on the table. They'll make sure that you're not feeling less than in terms of, you know, your peers as well. So when they see that, you know, everybody else is rocking those latest sneakers and you're talking about it, they'll make sure to provide for that. You know what I mean?
That's the
They
crazy
make
thing.
sure
They
that
can,
is
yeah,
there.
for sure.
Exactly. If
And
they
they
can.
push harder,
They
and they
push
push
harder
harder
to
for
make
it, yeah.
sure that you are satisfied and that you're not feeling less than, you know? And that's one thing I really, really appreciate.
It's not just the struggle of them doing that. Then there's another layer of struggle, which is like, all right, now our kids are going through this second wave of issues, you know, and that's more the adolescent side, like you were saying before, like committing the crimes and, you know, going through the justice system and all that stuff. And then it's like another stress on top, you know.
Sometimes I think, and you know, I want your input on this as well, but sometimes I think there's that divide, you know, where the parents sometimes have that survival mindset, like we were talking about before, where it's like you might talk about some certain thing that's a certain issue for you right now, you know, growing up in Australia, but they're looking at you like, is that really an issue? Do you know what I mean? Because they might, like, you know, without unintentionally, without actually meaning, you know, they might
not be able to understand
might
that
not be able to understand
because
that. And
they were never faced with it.
exactly. And they look at you like, bro, like, is this like really your worries when, you know, we've got 1,000 other
But
things
it's
to
funny
worry
because
about.
they say that. They'll say, you know, I used to walk 15 kilometers to go to
get to
school with
work,
no
that's
shoes.
school. Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
we hear that. You know, we hear those stories, you know.
But you know why it's an unfair comparison? Because one is lacking the basic human needs. So of course they're not going to see the not importance or severity, but like they're not going to see the seriousness of mental health.
Becomes
And now you're
minute.
talking to a kid born in Australia. He's never had any of those things to sort of compromise in his life, you know. And his main problem is that he's going through things internally in his head, you know. So
Exactly.
it's kind of hard because it's like I'm not going to take away from obviously, you know, having your basic human needs taken away from you is way more severe, but still, for a person that doesn't know what that is, imagining that. You get what I'm trying to say? So it causes like this rift, like a separation, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like there's two completely different challenges, you know?
Mm.
Like, I always applaud our older generation, our parents' generation, from thugging out what they thugged out, you know what I mean? Because it's important, and a lot of us wouldn't even be here without those positive role models in our lives, yeah?
We are who we are today because
But then again, for the youngsters, yeah, and for us when we were growing up, and we spoke about this in a previous episode as well, with that identity crisis, bro. Because our families were raised in a certain way. They were disciplined in a certain way. They were taught in a certain way. They learnt in a certain way. The environment was completely different. And then especially for the ones born here, you know, 25% you're at home and 75% you're at school. You know what I mean? So you're raised by your environment. And then you see everybody like, and even, you know, like when you're at school and stuff, you see your peers, maybe, you know, you see what's going on in their household. Sometimes you go over to your friend's house over here, you see that's completely different from
you
home.
see that's different, yeah,
And then it's like,
to yours.
and you're born here. You're born here, yeah? It's like, and then it's like identifying as Australian, like you were saying before, when you go overseas, you're like, yeah, you know, I'm Australian, you know? And then it's like, you're in Australia, growing up, you're born here, all you know is Australia, but a lot of your environment doesn't identify you as being Australian.
No, that's a tricky part.
And then you come home, we spoke about this deeply in
Yeah,
one
yeah.
episode, yeah? Then you come home, and it's like completely different household and completely different
Culture.
world to what you're going through outside. And then it comes to the point where you have one identity outside, you have another identity inside,
That's where the crisis
you got another
comes
identity
from.
over there,
Boys.
and you just become confused. And then it's like you're fighting demons, bro.
Yeah.
And then the only time, like, it's like it ends up becoming like you can't be who you are around the ones that love you the most, because it's shame or it's cliche, especially with like what you're going through at that time. So like, let's just say I'm in high school, or I've just finished high school and I'm with a bad group of friends or getting up to dumb shit. How many of us with African fathers can really go and sit down and have that conversation with them? All right, let's just say in a certain example, the father's not there, he's not present. How many of us can sit down with a mother and have that conversation, or seek that genuine advice that may be that push to the other direction? You
Yeah,
get what
I
I'm
think the
saying?
aspect there is like, you know, it's that, you know, sometimes there's the aspect of letting them down, and sometimes you don't want to. You're seeing in your household what's going down and the struggles that they're going through as well. You're just like, you don't want to pile up on their burden. Like, you don't want to be a burden to, you know, to your parents. So sometimes I feel like that's where the divide comes
But
from.
what I've seen is I've seen it with myself even when I was younger, and like the young people that are offending today, is it's a sense of belonging and acceptance. You get what I mean? It's like they can relax their shoulders, and wherever you can relax your shoulders is where you're gonna want to be.
That's where you drop your
You
guard.
get what
yeah.
I mean? Wherever you can relax your shoulders is where you're gonna want to be. If you're with your boys, you can be who you are authentically. And then when you're at home, it's like you got to put on this "I'm a good boy" persona,
Mask,
because you know
yeah.
that's the only thing that's gonna be accepted by your parents. You get what I mean? And I feel like in the long run, that does a particular type of damage to the individual, which I don't know, bro. Like I said, I don't like.
No, it does. It actually does, and that's the thing that most people don't get. Like a lot of these boys, they're looking for purpose, they're looking for belonging, and for some people, they're thinking, yeah, you're finding it in all the right places. But just what you just described there, like how many of us grew up not feeling Australian? I myself personally grew up not feeling.
Bro, me and my brother,
Go have.
we're half Aussie on our mum's side, and we're African on our dad's side. You know what I mean? We don't feel Aussie, bro. We didn't feel Aussie. Bro, we didn't feel Aussie growing up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's it.
but that's why we're at an interesting place though. It's like
Yeah.
reimagining and redefining like what Australia or what
Main thing
it means to be an Aussie.
Yeah, word.
It's like people always talk about like Australia being a multicultural country, like a successful multicultural country. At the moment, there's a lot of like debates around multiculturalism all over the world and how it's a negative thing. But for some unique reason, for the last 70 years, Australia's been able to perfectly do that. And I think the only way that Australia is going to move away from that, or it's going to become a negative, is when you start to have division seep in. So whether that's your media, whether that's just the general public or the narrative, it starts to divide the people. Yeah. What happens when you divide the people in any country? Doesn't matter what country it is. If you divide the people, then you create a war between the people within your own country.
Conflict.
And if the people don't even feel connected to each other, and if you're not exposing yourselves to other cultural groups and you're not trying to understand other cultural groups, you're going to have your generalizations, you're going to have your stereotypes. That's when that racism and that bias comes in. But that's just a lack of knowledge and an awareness of the person sitting across from you. I actually didn't realize until like I started getting into work that, yeah, most of the people like from different other ethnic backgrounds, like we're literally like the same. Like maybe we don't live the same lives, but we share the same kind of purpose. We have the same kind of human ambition. And that's where the uniqueness of Australia's multicultural is built around. And yeah, I think now like we talk about things like the White Australia policy, the history and the past. We should, because it honors the pain that's occurred in the past. But where we're at and what we're trying to build as a new unique community, it's like there's like something like 30% of the Australian population are like migrant born people. And
How much?
that's
30%?
insane, like 30%. And that's growing rapidly as well.
Yeah,
Of course,
yeah,
that's not even talking about like the kids that are increasingly born here. So it's sort of like we're reimagining what multiculturalism looks like. But what's been happening is like, so the majority of Australia actually sits in the middle. So the majority of people have the same shared values, the same shared goals. What's been happening is not just in Australia, but just through the process of globalization is you get two extremes. So your left and your right, and they are the ones seemingly dictating the conversation for the majority. And what's happening when you get people on either extremes is they do not agree with each other. They oppose each other completely.
There's no
Sort of,
common
yeah,
grounds of
that's like what's been
understanding.
happening with the youth crime debate. It's like some people think, oh, we're being too soft. We're being too soft in Victoria. We're being too tough in Queensland. But it's like we can actually find a middle point. What's to say that we can't find a middle point where we match accountability with compassion and we work towards that? Like it's and that's what's unique about like that new model that we just have, like that violence reduction unit here in Victoria. That new model that's like being remodeled around what's happened in Scotland and like what's happened in London, which actually led to like a steep decline over a long period in like high harm offences.
I think it was 60%, wasn't it? Yeah,
like
60% harm crime reduction. Yeah, definitely.
But I just wanted to touch base on that division thing as well. Like, this is something that I always wanted to touch base on as well, yeah? Within our own African communities, there's division.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? It wasn't so much like when I was, like, I'm like the same age as you, yeah? I don't know if you remember, but when we were younger, it's like, you're African, bro? You're African. Yeah. It doesn't matter which part of Africa you're from. It doesn't matter, none of that, yeah? But I'll see it more with the younger generation now. It's like, it matters.
What sort of like happened around like that? Remember how they had like between 2016 to like 2018, even 2019, the whole like African gangs narrative all over the media here, like in Australia, the Apex and everything. Personally, like as someone who's South Sudanese, I felt that like other African cultures, like they started to, before we were brothers because we're African. See another African person, you nod, you say what's up. You've got another African person in school with you, you're excited because like, someone that's like me.
Yeah.
And then like, I guess for my community in particular, around that time, you had like a lot of people sort of disown us. They're like, we're not that kind of African.
Which is sad, yeah, exactly.
But then like, it's a different story when it comes to maybe if we're trying to lobby for something relating to funding. Now we're all that
Now we're
kind
all
of
the
African.
same, yeah.
So it's, I don't know, it's insane.
Real
That's
shit.
deep. Yeah, that's
real
deep.
shit.
That's nuts too, bro.
But you're right. We got to get back to firstly, like we can't repeat what's been going on at home.
100%.
The whole reason
Yeah,
is
because it's like
yeah,
it's like a continuation of the tribal shit over there.
It's
You know
happened
what I mean?
already, yeah.
And it needs to end somewhere.
it has to because like and I reckon like a country like Australia is where it could end because I grew up with people from like different ethnic tribes that I'm supposed to hate. Ethnic tribes from my own country, like say I'm from the Dinka tribe. We've got the Nuer tribe in South Sudan as well. Those are the two main ethnic groups. But there's also the two main ethnic groups at war with each other, like committing crimes against each other.
Yeah.
There's like growing up, you couldn't even mix within. Like you see another South Sudanese person, you had to actually check, what background are you from?
To G-check what tribe they are.
tribe
Yeah.
you
And that's similar. And that's similar, bro.
Wow,
Tribal
man.
issue is a big thing in Africa in general. You know,
And-
the biggest issue
It
is
is,
tribalism, and I think it's changing now slowly. Like and I think it's for the better as well because back then, like, there's a lot of emotion to it. So it's like, you know, you might have an uncle that was killed by this person, or from this tribe and stuff like that, where they can't let go. It's just like that animosity or the anger which is passed down that just can't let go. But I think now we're sort of looking at it in a lens of different lens, where it's like that tribalism doesn't really matter to us. Where it's like good to know who you are and where you come from, but then that shouldn't, you know what I mean, cause any dividing factor or conflict.
Because that's what I was saying. Going back to your point about anywhere that has divide is like the beginning of the fall,
Yeah.
And whether it's tribalism, whether it's spirituality, whether it's any form of division, and I'm a big advocate against that, bro.
Because that's divide and conquer. It's divide and conquer. That's when you can be conquered if there's division.
That's why I always like to push out this narrative that like, what do I say? I say in division we fall, but in unity we rise. Because if you're so fixated on trying to work out why me and you are so different, and you're so fixated on trying to point out the differences, of course, by the time you've pointed out what's what, everything's done. You're finished,
Exactly.
But if we just put those differences aside, whether it be tribalism, religion, preferences, whatever, definitely see like the new age of Australia, what it means to be Australian.
You're right. Like, and that's learnings that we can take from our own countries, where like tribalism has literally destabilized our countries, where we're in constant conflict. We can't have partnerships with each other. And like, I'm glad that there's that Pan-Africanism movement, like working to help restabilize and build back up Africa. There's also like a lot of like other contributing factors as well. I won't get too much into detail about that, but just coming back here, even to Australia now, multiculturalism has been successful until now. We're sort of like drawing our own different tribal lines here in Australia. Whether that's like someone who, say, is part of a far right movement like the neo-Nazi movement, or whether that's somebody that leans too extremely left
or you're too right, you're center.
But we're not really having like healthy debates about like we're starting to get back there now. But like, it's either we're back to that crime, like we're either on two extremes. We either only need to be tough or we need to be soft. What about that middle point? That's a win-win for everybody. If you get to that middle point where you still got tough sentencing for really high harm offenses, then you're showing the general public and the community that you're serious about like offending and about their safety. But at the same time, like if you're on that early prevention and intervention tip as well, then like you're also letting the people or even the families whose young kids might be committing those offenses know that we sort of understand why it's happening, and we're trying to make sure that we intervene early enough so kids don't even have to get locked up, so kids don't have to drop out of school and lose hope. And I think that's big.
That is the middle ground then, isn't it? Because it's one of them is going high on the high end, and one of them is doing the intervention. So doing the middle is
that makes like logical sense, right?
Sense, but easier said than done, man.
But
sometimes that's the issue.
We've got evidence already internationally through like that Scottish like reduction unit and that London reduction unit, and like what we're rebuilding here in Victoria as well. It's like, and it's sort of like in a debate known for being on like either end, like whether it's you're criminalizing like Black or African people, and now it's leading to the general public thinking that we need to be tougher on crime, or you're being too compassionate and you're being too lenient according to, I guess, certain people. Then what we're doing is trying to like hit that middle point. What we know from the research and what the data says, like that being tough on crime, it works in the short term, but in the long term is ineffective. Being soft on crime as well, like I don't even think there's like, we already know what that is, but if you can combine early intervention and prevention, so provide mentors and role models around kids at their early formative years, but at the same time when that tippy end where they are the people that the community is concerned about. Even our own, even us from our own community, we don't like that happening. Like we don't like there's not really rules anymore. We don't like people running into people's houses, stabbing people's families.
No one likes that.
Or like bashing mums or some weird shit.
There used to be a code.
Yeah, not anymore.
But that's shifted now as well. Like back then, you never see that happen.
Where do you think that comes from, bro?
Substances.
But that's what I say. Like
could be substance
that's what I say again. Like as the generations go on, I see like there was morals. There was more morals. Even if you were to do something
on
ridiculous
the offending nature,
of the offending nature, there was still morals. Like you'd still help an old lady across the street, for example. You know,
It's I guess like it might be that exposure to like what social media brings in as well is like exposure to like different subcultures. So in Victoria, we're like at a really early age, and in most things, like we're a well-functioning country, like a very successful country. but compared to like other Western allies, like
We're behind.
yeah, we're not behind in that sense, but like we're actually at a place where we're defining what it looks like here in Australia. There aren't things or policies or laws that are too entrenched that we can't reverse.
Yeah.
But that's what also leads to like the consistent and constant public debates about a whole range of different things, because we're literally like at such an exciting point where we're molding. We're molding,
Figuring it out.
Yeah, we're figuring it out. And with every new migrant and cultural group that comes in,
Yeah.
they bring and add something new,
Add to it.
spicy to the whole cocktail.
Yeah,
I actually feel so like going to other countries actually makes me much more appreciative of being like in Australia. I feel like growing up here, I got to know the whole world in one country.
100%. And you
I
know,
agree.
other countries don't have that, bro. You
I
know?
agree.
Other countries have that
Exactly.
severe multiculturalism.
That's
You know?
deep.
Got to learn the whole world from a massive island in the middle of nowhere.